Well, hello and welcome. Welcome to episode 8 of the Unstoppable Entertainment Show. I am Nate Schaffner, otherwise known as the Unstoppable Nate. And how are you all doing this week? I hope you're doing well, and if you aren't, I hope that this show provides a brief break from whatever you're going through in life. I hope you have fun in enjoying this show. I know I'm having fun doing it. Um, before I get into the show today, I just wanted to remind everyone that if you have a topic or a question, or if you'd like me to talk about certain movies or franchises, you can email me anytime at the email that's listed in the description of this video. Also, if you if you like this show and have liked this show in the past, you can go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button and spread the word. So with that down, with all that out of the way, let's get started here. And there are a number of topics to talk about this week. And the first of those is this. There is a report on Deadline uh, about an upcoming movie uh, called By Any Means. It's going to be a crime thriller um, that is going to star Mark Wahlberg, and Yahya Abdul Mateen II has is going to join him in this movie. Um, so the report is on Deadline, published by Matt Grobar and Justin Kroll, and the article says that Yahya Abdul Mateen II has closed a deal to star opposite Mark Wahlberg in By Any Means, the crime thriller from the Inspection's Elegance Bratton. Elegance Bratton will be the director of the movie. Um, so this article goes on to say that By Any Means is based on the incredible true story of the notorious mafia hitman who was hired by Hoover's FBI off the books and partnered with a young black special agent to hunt down those responsible for the murders of civil rights leaders in 1966 Mississippi. Um, Now, for those who aren't familiar with Yahya Abdul Mateen II, most famously he did play Black Manta in the Aquaman movies. So this movie sounds interesting to me. You know, I've always been interested in movies that are uh, based on true events. Um, and I love that by watching this movie, by seeing this movie, I feel like I'm going to learn something from this movie. I love Mark Wahlberg. I think um, I love him as an actor. I will say that I think some of the material that he's been in hasn't sometimes is not quite good. He was great in The Departed. I love him as an actor. He's always given great performances, and this sounds interesting to me. Um, you know, it sounds like it's going to be a kind of political thriller, which always intrigues me. Um, and it's going to be based on a true story, so I'm sure that will attract a certain audience, including myself. Jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts about Mark Wahlberg and Yahya Abdul Mateen II being in this political thriller um, uh, story. So this next report is some Marvel Cinematic Universe news. So this article is on MovieWeb, published by Jonathan Fugue, and this article is concerning a spin-off of the upcoming Thunderbolts movie. So for those who don't know, um, the character of Sentry is going to apparently be in the Thunderbolts movie. Uh, Now, this article says, in the wake of Avengers Endgame, the MCU bid farewell to some major characters like Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, and Chris Evans' Captain America, paving a way for new characters to take over the ongoing franchise. This year, a new face will emerge in the upcoming Thunderbolts, and it seems Marvel is already working on a spin-off. This new face is the mysterious Bob, played in the team-up movie by Top Gun Maverick star Lewis Pullman, and creator Paul Jenkins has now revealed that he is under contract to give Bob his own movie. Now, Bob also goes by the superhero name Sentry, and was created by Paul Jenkins. Now, like I said, or like this article says, Paul Jenkins has now revealed that Sentry is going to get his own movie. I'm sorry. Paul Jenkins has said, "It's very cool to have my work recognized, and one thing I will say is that I have a contract, at least with Marvel, that if there's a Sentry movie, I write it. So that's good news. I also worked on the Thunderbolts movie." So, he also went on to say, "I actually consulted on Thunderbolts. I was able to give them insights into their character. It's going to be interesting to see how it turns out. But I think some elements of it are good. As you can see from the trailer, the Sentry and the Void appear to be in Thunderbolts." So, I think Sentry getting his own movie is interesting. I'm not sure what to think of it just yet. Like I don't have many two thoughts about it because I haven't, obviously Thunderbolts isn't out yet, so I haven't seen it. But I think based on this information, it seems as if there's enough there for the studio to say, "Hey, we like the way that this Sentry character is coming off in the movie. Let's do a spin-off and give Sentry their own movie," which I think is fascinating to me. It will be interesting to see the kind of role that Sentry plays in Thunderbolts, and whether and how that character arc will develop into a Sentry spin-off. I just, let's wait and see. I think it's exciting that a character like Sentry will be getting their own movie, and will he be a villain in his own movie, or a hero, or who's going to be the hero and villain of the Sentry movie? I don't know. I think it could be very interesting. If you're a Marvel fan, what do you think about this news? Do you think Sentry deserves his own movie? What do you guys think about that? It's certainly interesting to me. Again, I need more information about it. But jump to the comment section and let me know your thoughts about this. This next bit of news is particularly exciting and will be particularly exciting for any Dune fans. This report comes from MovieWeb, and it is regarding the upcoming, film adaptation of Dune Messiah. Um, that Denis Villeneuve will be directing. This article um, is on MovieWeb and published by Alicia Lutz. Um, and this article says that I want to make sure I get the wording right. Hold on. This article basically says that Jason Momoa is reportedly returning for the film adaptation of Dune Messiah. And this article says the most hilariously named character in all of Dunedom is set to return to the Duneverse. That's right, folks. Duncan Idaho himself, aka Jason Momoa, is allegedly set to reprise his character in the third installment of Denis Villeneuve's trilogy of films, currently titled Dune Messiah. This is a big deal if you're a fan of the movies and or the Frank Herbert novels, because if true, it would essentially confirm that a very wild character arc from the books is coming to the big screen, especially when you consider the fact that Momoa wasn't in the last film. So, I am I'm a huge Dune fan, both of the books and the movies. Now, for those who haven't read the books, I'm not going to spoil anything here. But Jason Momoa coming back for a film adaptation of Dune Messiah. First of all, that it does happen in the book. Like the character of Duncan Idaho, who is played by Jason Momoa in the film. Duncan Idaho is in Dune Messiah, and the way his character returns is bonkers. It's wild. And now I don't want to spoil anything for anybody out there who hasn't read the books or seen the films, but it is it's I can't even describe it. Let me just say this. If you thought, okay, if you've seen Dune Part 2, the way they bring in Alia, Paul's sister, the fetus, and you have Anya Taylor-Joy playing the character in a brief scene. And you basically have the fetus of Alia speaking to Jessica, Lady Jessica. And listen, I'm a huge fan of science fiction as a genre, and I thought how they adapted that, because it's a little different in the book the way they did that. But the way they adapted that into the film, I thought was brilliant from a science fiction standpoint. Let me just say, if you thought that was wild, you haven't experienced anything, because the way the character of Duncan Idaho returns in Dune Messiah is bonkers. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And if this is true, I think for people who have only seen the films, it will blow their minds. And I think if you've read the books, this is very exciting news. I thought Jason Momoa was very good as Duncan Idaho. I thought he captured that character perfectly. But that's just me. And his return, let me just say again, I don't want to spoil anything, but it's going to be a little different than you saw previously. but it's still going to be great. And I I cannot wait to see this. I loved I loved the Dune Messiah book even more than the original novel. You know, is that you know is that heresy to say? Is that sacrilegious to say something like that? But I loved Dune Messiah. I cannot wait for this. God, dude, it Dune Messiah, the film adaptation of Dune Messiah, I think is gonna be great. And this is even more reason to get excited. I'm glad this is happening. And it's actually it's not a critical part of the Paul Atreides story, but in terms of the story of Dune Messiah, it is a crucial part in the telling of that story. If what I just said makes any sense, um, but uh, I think this is great, and it's gonna be bonkers. It's gonna be brilliant. I can't wait for this. Jump in the comments section and let me know what your thoughts are about this. Um, this next bit of news is a little disappointing to read about. Um, so it's concerning the fourth Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, and this article is on the Hollywood Reporter, published by Ryan Gajewski. Am I pronouncing? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Um, so, and this article says that Tom Holland's. Uh, this article says. This article reads. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble today. This article reads: Tom Holland's Spider-Man 4 is going to take slightly longer to swing into theaters. Hold on, just a second. Let me turn on the light. Okay. So, let me get back to what I was saying here. Tom Holland's. This article says Tom Holland's Spider-Man 4 is going to take slightly longer to swing into theaters. Sony Pictures announced Friday that the Marvel superheroes' next feature is now set for a theatrical release on July 31st, 2026, a week later than previously scheduled. Filmmaker Destin Daniel Cretton, who directed Shang-Chi, is helming the movie that is currently untitled. Now, um, this article goes on to say that this change gives the project extra distance from the release of director Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, which also stars Holland and hits theaters July 17th, 2026. Maybe that's why they delayed it, to move it away from, you know, another blockbuster like The Odyssey is going to be. When you have two huge movies opening close together or even on the same weekend, uh, a lot of times neither one will make a lot of money because you're making audiences essentially pick one to see. So moving one movie, distancing the movie a week or two apart, uh, gives people the chance to spend money on one and then spend money on the other. Um, and like this article points out, Tom Holland is in the Odyssey as well. So that's going to be a lot of Tom Holland in a week's time. You know, I I my guess is that that's why they moved his Spider-Man movie a week later than previously scheduled. I love uh, the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. I've come around on him as Spider-Man too. It's interesting when I first saw his first Spider-Man movie, which was Homecoming. I didn't like it. I thought, because in every other Spider-Man movie up until Homecoming, like I it was trying to think of how to say this properly, but like Spider-Man was just being Spider-Man. Like he was stopping supervillains and and just being Spider-Man, and he didn't need anybody to train him or mentor him or anything. And I didn't like that Spider-Man needed to be mentored. But as I watched the movie more, it dawned on me that the reason, especially in Homecoming, the first one, it it dawned on me that at like in the timeline of the MCU events, Tom Holland, Tom Holland's Peter Parker had only been Spider-Man for like 6 months, you know, so he's not going to really be, uh, you know, he still needs mentoring. He still needs training. He's still a kid, he's still learning everything that, and then it's, I kind of think of it. I kind of think of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies as a an origin story trilogy, and by the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, he has become the classic version of Spider-Man that we all know and love, right? He's on his own. He's stopping. He's going to be stopping supervillains and saving the city all by himself. And so with as I've come to learn that, I love him as Spider-Man, and I love the movies. I think, even I think his 3 Spider-Man movies are the best. Like, if you look at, and I love Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, I do. But if you look at Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man trilogy and Andrew Garfield's 2 Spider-Man movies and Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies, I think Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies are the best series of Spider-Man films, at least in my opinion. I'm really looking forward to his 4th Spider-Man movie, especially after No Way Home. My God, that movie, that movie made me ugly cry for like 10 minutes straight. My wife Katie is looking over at me like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Oh God." That movie's great. So I'm really looking forward to this. So jump in the comment section. Tell me what you think about. Are you looking forward to a 4th Tom Holland Spider-Man movie? Do you what are your thoughts on his Spider-Man movies as a whole? This next report is regarding an upcoming movie starring Brad Pitt, that is going to be directed by David Ayer, who David Ayer directed, I believe he did Fury, the movie with Brad Pitt in the tank, and it's basically people refer to it as the Brad Pitt tank movie, but so this report is on Deadline, published by Anthony D'Alessandro, and this report says that J.K. Simmons is boarding, or is boarding the movie. He will be in the movie with Brad Pitt that will be directed by David Ayer, and the title of the movie is called Heart of the Beast. So this article was published by Anthony D'Alessandro, and the article says J.K. Simmons is boarding the David Ayer directed Paramount Pictures movie Heart of the Beast opposite Brad Pitt. So this article goes on to say, Deadline first told you about Heart of the Beast, which follows a former Army Special Forces soldier and his retired combat dog who battle for survival after a plane crash deep in the unforgiven Alaskan wilderness. Cameron Alexander penned the script and will executive produce. Um, I love J.K. Simmons. I love J.K. Simmons. You know, he's a great actor. I obviously first saw him as J. Jonah Jameson in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. He was great in Whiplash. Obviously, you know, winning the Oscar. Um, you know, he's just a great actor, and it'll be interesting to see the dynamic between Brad Pitt and J.K. Simmons. I think adding an actor like J.K. Simmons to this movie adds a I don't know what the right word is, but um, it'll you always believe J.K. Simmons. Not to say that you don't always believe, like Brad Pitt always gives believable performances, but there's a certain quality that J.K. Simmons brings to his performances that just, you know, uh, audiences just gravitate towards him. You know, you just can't take your eyes off of him. And you know, I'm very excited to see him in this movie and him teaming with Brad Pitt. And you know, I think this movie um, sounds great. So jump in the comments section and let me know what your thoughts are about J.K. Simmons being in this movie. This next bit of news um, is is regarding Charlie Kaufman's next movie. This report um, comes from Deadline, published by Justin Kroll. And this article reads, Oscar winner Charlie Kaufman has found his next project as he is set to write and direct Later the War and tapped Eddie Redmayne, Tessa Thompson, and Patsy Ferran to star. Kaufman adapted the script from the short story Debbie's Dream House by acclaimed author Edo Geffen from his short story collection titled Jerusalem Beach. Excuse me. This article goes on to say that the original short story follows a man who manufactures dreams for people but ultimately begins creating nightmares for them. Exact plot details of the feature adaptation are unknown. So this sounds the premise of this movie sounds fascinating. It almost gives me a little bit of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind vibes if you've seen that movie, which I dearly love. So this you know, manufacturing dreams for people but ultimately creating nightmares, that sounds fantastic. You know, Tessa Thompson is great, you know, obviously from the Thor movies and Creed, and I think she's a great actress. Eddie Redmayne, obviously coming off of you know, the Day of the Jackal, the series on Peacock. He's a great actor. He was in the Theory of Everything, which he won the Oscar for, deservedly so. He was in, and I know I'm going to get hate for this, but I don't care. Eddie Redmayne was in this movie called Jupiter Ascending, which is this sci-fi movie that was directed by the Wachowskis, and it has Channing Tatum and Mila Kunis, and Eddie Redmayne plays the villain. And Eddie, that movie's awesome. Sometimes you watch a movie and you just think, this movie was made just for me, And I really enjoyed Jupiter Ascending, and Eddie Redmayne I thought he was very good in that movie. He's a great actor. Charlie Kaufman, I think. Excuse me just a second. I want to make sure I get my information right. Okay. So, so um, Charlie Kaufman, I think, is a very interesting voice in Hollywood. It'll be interesting to see how he tells this story. The cast sounds great. I'm not too familiar with Patsy Ferran, but you get a cast like Eddie Redmayne and Tessa Thompson, and this sounds very. It's got my attention, definitely. And then Patsy Ferran is going to be she's going to be. There's this movie coming out soon called Mickey 17 with Robert Pattinson, and it's this sci-fi movie directed by Bong Joon-ho, who directed Parasite, which won Best Picture at the Oscars. And Patsy Ferran is going to be in that movie. So it'll be interesting to, see what she brings in that movie, and then I'll be more excited to see her in Later the War, the Charlie Kaufman movie. So jump in the comment section and let me know what you think about this news. This next bit of news is more Marvel news. This article is on MovieWeb, published by Richard Fink. And this article states that Daredevil Born Again Season 2 will debut in 2026. So I want to make sure I get my information right here. I'm sorry. Let's see. So this article says that Daredevil Born Again Season 1 is just a little over a week away from hitting Disney+, but fans might not need to wait much longer for Season 2, as it could be coming to the screen way sooner than expected. Originally announced back in 2022 to be an 18-episode season, Born Again was then split into two 9-episode seasons, with the first part airing in 2025, 10 years after Daredevil first debuted. While fans have gotten used to waiting years between streaming seasons, and in many MCU Disney Plus series cases, not even getting a second season, Daredevil Born Again looks to be the start of a new era, even though it is a continuation of the Daredevil series that aired on Netflix from 2015 to 2018, which is awesome. The Netflix Daredevil series is awesome. This article goes on to say, speaking with Screen Rant's Liam Crowley, Marvel Studios head of streaming Brad Winderbaum revealed that Daredevil Born Again Season 2 is set to hit Disney Plus in 2026, 1 year after Daredevil Born Again Season 1. When asked about the details surrounding Daredevil Born Again Season 2 beginning production, Winderbaum was asked if the plan was for the series to be an annual release. Winderbaum responded, "That is the plan. Season 2 will come out next year." He also revealed that they are already discussing the prospect of Season 3, hinting at Daredevil being one of Marvel Studios' first long-form live-action streaming series as opposed to a miniseries like previous titles. He said, quote, "Then hopefully Season 3 and Season Infinity after that. I think this world is extremely rich, and there are many stories to be told on the streets of New York, said Winterbaum. Okay. First of all, like I said, the Netflix Daredevil series is awesome. And I have heard that Daredevil Born Again, this Daredevil Born Again series, which is essentially the sequel series to the Netflix um, series, I've heard that Daredevil Born Again will just take what the Netflix series did to another level. I've heard it's going to be great, and I am so excited for this, especially because we're getting more than one season. Um, Charlie Cox is great. They're bringing back the whole cast from the Netflix series. Vincent D'Onofrio is perfectly cast as the Kingpin. And again, I think the fact that we're getting a second season, it says a lot about the quality of the first season, right? Because I think if the first season wasn't looking so hot, then we wouldn't be getting a season 2. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But I like that it looks like we're not going to have to wait too long to get a season 2. Like we'll be getting a season 1 this year, and season 2 will come out next year. And I'm glad that we won't have to wait a long time between both seasons. So jump in the comment section and let me know what your thoughts are. Are you excited about Daredevil Born Again? Are you glad that we're getting a season 2? What do you think? What did you think of the Netflix Daredevil show? Jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts. More Marvel news here. This next report is on Screen Rant, published by Felipe Rangel. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. And this article says that an X-Men MCU show is reportedly in development at Marvel Studios. This article says, Marvel Studios is reportedly developing a new X-Men series for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Deadpool and Wolverine became the highest-grossing R-rated movie of all time, showing Marvel the potential that the X-Men and mutants have for the MCU's future movies and TV shows. It seems like the studio not only recognizes that potential, but it plans to move fast on it. Marvel Studios' X-Men movie has already found a writer, and casting rumors have started to emerge. Now, the MCU appears to be getting the X-Men not only in theaters, but also on the small screen. Now, I just want to say that before I continue, this report is, while it is coming from a movie insider, like a scooper, and like I've always said, this sometimes movie insiders give reports that end up not being true, and sometimes they do end up being true. But this particular insider has a history of reporting things. More often than not, they end up being true. So I just wanted to throw that out there before I continue. This article goes on to say that an X-Academy series focused on young mutants is in the works at Marvel. The report claims that the project could even be released before the MCU's upcoming X-Men reboot movie, though there is also the possibility that it will serve as a spin-off to the X-Men's Arrival film. Okay, there are several things that I think, there are several thoughts I have about this. First of all, I like the fact that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has both TV shows and movies. And while it can be a little overwhelming in terms of, not in terms of the quality of the content, but in terms of how often they're released. You know, a lot of these shows, the MCU shows early on, got released very, very quickly, so it was difficult to keep up, at least for me. But I like the fact that this Marvel Cinematic Universe encompasses both film and television. So I have a couple of thoughts about an X-Men live action series. Um, I think it could be good. I think maybe they could do like the series could be an um, origin story, because we know that adamantium exists in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? Because of the Celestials. So maybe an X-Men series could be an origin story for certain X-Men characters, and then we see those characters later on in the movies. Or we could see the X-Men debut in movies and then lesser known characters be in the show. I think it could go either way. You know, I think that certain X-Men stories could serve better as a series. It seems to me that they've never gotten the Dark Phoenix story arc correct. They've come close, but not really. An X Academy series, however, which is what this article points out, that says to me that if they did an X Academy series, it would focus on the original X-Men, which was Cyclops, Jean Grey. Who are the original X-Men? The original X-Men characters. Yeah, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Beast, Iceman, and Angel. So maybe they could do an X-Men Academy show about, you know, those original 5 X-Men. That could be cool too. Who knows? Either way, I'm just excited for more Marvel stuff, especially the X-Men, because the X-Men have always been one of my favorite. The X-Men comics were always my favorite, and I love the characters. So I'm just excited for more X-Men, you know, as well. So jump in the comment section and let me know what your thoughts are on an X-Men Academy series. This next bit of news is has to do with Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy. Now, for those who don't know, Kathleen Kennedy, who is probably the greatest film producer ever. If you look up her filmography as a producer, it's sparkling, to say the least. Now, Kathleen Kennedy took over when George Lucas sold Lucasfilm to Disney. George Lucas appointed Kathleen Kennedy to be the studio head of Lucasfilm. And I personally think that her tenure as the head of Lucasfilm is a mixed bag. And I'll tell you why. I think, you know, her job at Lucasfilm was, if you was essentially to produce Star Wars movies that make money. Okay? And for the most part, she succeeded at that. Except for there was that movie Solo: A Star Wars Story, which was the Han Solo origin story, which I actually quite liked. I didn't love it, but I liked it. It's my least favorite. Well, actually, it's not, but it's I would say next to Rise of Skywalker, it's my least favorite of the Disney era of Star Wars movies. But the that movie, Solo: A Star Wars Story, was the first Star Wars theatrically released movie to lose money. And that happened under Kathleen Kennedy's tenure. But for the most part, her job was to produce Star Wars movies that make money, and for the most part, she succeeded. However, there have been numerous Star Wars projects that were announced under her tenure that were announced and then canceled. And I'm blanking on some of these projects, but essentially what happened, there were several projects that were announced, and then it ended up being that the people, the directors of the movie had a different vision than what Kathleen Kennedy wanted, so that project was canceled. And essentially it boils down to this: why weren't you on the same creative page? Why didn't you agree creatively on what story to tell before you announced this movie? You know, why did you hire this person as a director to tell this story, and then find out later on that you weren't on the same page creatively, and then you had to cancel the project? You know, I can think of a couple offhand. I mean, there was Patty Jenkins, who directed the Wonder Woman movie. Actually, both of them, but she directed both Wonder Woman movies. She was going to direct a Rogue Squadron movie, and it was they made this huge announcement that Patty Jenkins was going to direct a Rogue Squadron movie. And then later on, it turned out that the project was canceled because Kathleen Kennedy and Patty Jenkins weren't on the same page creatively. And it's like, why didn't you figure that out before you hired her? Before you hired Patty Jenkins? And then there was this whole drama with the Han Solo movie. There were. That movie was originally going to be directed by two directors, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who did, I believe they did the Lego movie. They were going to direct the Han Solo movie, and then it turned out that they were directing a completely different kind of movie than what was originally envisioned, and so Kathleen Kennedy brought. They fired Phil Lord and Chris Miller and brought in Ron Howard, one of the greatest directors ever. Brought in Ron Howard to basically save that movie, and Ron Howard saved the Han Solo movie. And it's just one of these things where, yeah, you were the boss of Lucasfilm and you produced movies that made money, but you also have a long history of announcing project after project after project, and then you know, it ends up that you weren't on the same page creatively, and these projects were canceled. And it got to the point where, personally, I couldn't get excited about a Star Wars, any Star Wars announcements, because it's just like, well, this project is probably going to be canceled in 6 weeks. You know, it was a mixed bag. So, uh, this piece of news that came out this week is regarding Kathleen Kennedy and her her I guess you could say era as boss of Lucasfilm. And this article was published on Joe Blow by Steve Saig. And it says that Kathleen Kennedy is expected to exit the company by the end of 2025. So by the end of this year. This article says that Kennedy made her mark at the studio by relaunching the Star Wars universe with J.J. Abrams' Star Wars The Force Awakens. While the film banked $2 billion globally, the reset was ill-received by many longtime franchise fans. Not me. I really enjoyed Force Awakens. Anyway, regardless of online bellyaching, Kennedy pressed onward with 2 more entries in the core series, Star Wars The Last Jedi and Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. Kennedy took the Star Wars franchise in questionable directions, creatively and financially, throughout her tenure. She hired Chris Lord and Phil Miller, so I got the names incorrect. Chris Lord and Phil Miller to direct Solo, a Star Wars story. Partway through the film's production, pushed Gareth Edwards away from Rogue One, a Star Wars story, then hired Tony Gilroy, whose efforts to organize reshoots were hampered by work already completed on the film, creating a confusing atmosphere. Other projects under Kennedy's watch failed to reach fans, including a trilogy by Last Jedi director Rian Johnson. Yeah, that was announced and never happened. A movie from Game of Thrones creatives D.B. Benioff and David Weiss, and Daisy Ridley's rumored return to the Star Wars universe. Star Wars recouped some of its popularity and appeal on Disney Plus with The Mandalorian, which lasted for 3 seasons and has a feature film on the way with The Mandalorian and Grogu. Other live-action Star Wars series on the mouse-eared streaming service, The Book of Boba Fett, Andor, Ahsoka, The Acolyte, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Skeleton Crew, received mixed reviews from fans, with many voicing their frustration for the franchise's direction under Kennedy's watch. Let me just jump in and say, those shows that I just read off, the only one that I personally haven't enjoyed, was The Book of Boba Fett. I haven't watched Andor yet, but I've enjoyed. I haven't watched Skeleton Crew either, but I personally have enjoyed for the most part, the Star Wars TV shows. This article goes on to say, Kathleen Kennedy's career at Lucasfilm has had its share of ups and downs, but her mark on many of pop culture's most adored franchises is undeniable. While one generation balks at Kennedy's creative choices, another remembers her contributions fondly, depending on who you ask. That said, it's time for a creative shakeup. Lucasfilm is a premier studio with talented individuals making cinematic magic daily. Injecting new visions could take the studio beyond the stars in future years. So, I do want to point out that there are other articles being published that have said that Kathleen Kennedy is not only is she stepping down from Lucasfilm, she's retiring. That is not the case. She is stepping down from Lucasfilm. However, she is not retiring. There is a report on Screen Rant that says that Kennedy, even though she will be stepping down as head of Lucasfilm, she is going to be serving as a producer on several more Star Wars projects, including the Sean Levy, who directed Deadpool and Wolverine and Free Guy. Sean Levy is going to be doing a Star Wars movie, and then Simon Kinberg, who worked on the X-Men films, he will be doing a Star Wars trilogy as well. And so Kathleen Kennedy will be a producer on those films. She is not retiring, but she is stepping down from Lucasfilm. So like I said, I think Kathleen Kennedy's tenure as head of Lucasfilm is a mixed bag. I do think it is time for new leadership. I don't necessarily know who that would be. I have a couple people in mind of who I would want to see, but I don't, it's not my problem. I think I will say this. I think there needs to be leadership in place at Lucasfilm that I personally want to get excited when new Star Wars films or TV shows get announced. I want to get excited for that again. And I haven't been, personally. And I personally want leadership in place at Lucasfilm that gets me excited about new Star Wars films and TV shows. And that's what I want. And again, I don't necessarily know who that would be. But that's what I want. And I think it is time for new leadership. And I think Kathleen Kennedy's tenure at Lucasfilm, like I said, is a mixed bag. And I don't know what else to say about it. We'll see what happens in terms of leadership at Lucasfilm. I think it's time for a change. So jump in the comment section and let me know what you guys think about this. So this next article, let me just make sure I get this right. This next article has to do with more MCU news. Excuse me. This article is on MovieWeb, published by Ernesto Valenzuela. So this article says, as Marvel Studios begins to gear up for the climactic Avengers films that will wrap up the multiverse saga, much of the attention has been turned towards new properties that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has introduced. This year, we'll see not one, but two new team-up films this year, with Thunderbolts being released in May and the Fantastic Four First Steps being released in July. Since Disney acquired 20th Century Fox, fans have eagerly awaited for the MCU to introduce characters they never had access to before, especially the X-Men. Now, a new report seems to confirm that is indeed the case. This article goes on to say, in an interview with Screen Rant about future Marvel television projects, Brad Winderbaum, head of TV and streaming for Marvel Studios, gave a surprisingly direct answer about the future of the X-Men over at Marvel Studios. While the executive producer had plenty to say about how far along future seasons of X-Men 97 are, he offered a brief but critical update on the X-Men's future in live-action films, saying, "I think anybody could say anything online, and it hits the rumor mill and people get excited. Right now, we are still working on X-Men 97 Season 2. It's coming together amazingly, and the scripts for Season 3 are insane. That is certainly scratching the X-Men itch for me on television. And there is an X-Men feature in development right now, so that is the focus of X-Men currently." So an MCU X-Men feature film is in development. This is exciting to me. I love the X-Men. It'll be interesting to see, again, mentioning the X-Men show earlier, whether how and if the X-Men, the MCU X-Men movie and the TV show will be connected. It'll be interesting to see what characters they bring in. Since the Celestials are made of adamantium, how far away are we from getting Wolverine? That could be interesting. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how audiences connect with this new iteration of X-Men. There's a generation of people such as myself who grew up with the X-Men, the Fox X-Men movies, and we identify certain actors as certain characters. And I think it will be difficult initially, especially with Wolverine. It will be interesting. It'll be difficult to see someone else in that role. But I think it's exciting, and I it's also great to see all these Marvel characters finally under one banner. That's awesome. We have, Spider-Man, X-Men, all these, Captain America, all these great characters finally under the MCU. I think it's great. It'll be interesting. It's also, I wonder what will be, which will come first, whether it's the live-action X-Men show or the movie, and how one will affect the other. I'm just excited, like I said before, I'm just excited to see the X-Men in the MCU. We've seen mutants already with Miss Marvel, and will we see Miss Marvel interact with the X-Men? That'll be cool. It's just as a Marvel fan, this is awesome. An MCU X-Men movie is in development. That's so cool. Jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts. Before I move on to the next topic, I just wanted to take a few minutes here and talk about my passion for movies, and then use, and then I want to talk about my passion for movies, and then segue into what I wanted to talk about next. And I know that sounds a little weird to say out loud now that I'm saying it, but if you'll indulge me for a few minutes, I just want to talk about my passion for movies. Um, I, from a very young age, 9, 10 years old, maybe even 8 years old, I have had a very deep passion for for movies. Um, my mom took me to see several movies when I was a kid, but I think the one that had the most impact on me was Jurassic Park. Um, my that was I remember humming the Jurassic Park theme out loud, uh, and I was 9 years old. My mom took me to see Jurassic Park, and it had an impact on me. And um, I want to make sure I formulate my thoughts on this correctly. I have always wanted to. I always wanted to learn how to make movies. I am. I've always been someone who. Uh, I don't just love going to the movies and watching movies. I love analyzing movies. I love analyzing scenes in movies. I love discussing actors' performances. I love talking about the special effects in big effects movies. I am someone who watches uh, behind the scenes making of featurettes, like how they made the movie. I'm someone who watches those featurettes constantly. I love look. I love all the aspects of filmmaking. And in 2013, I decided to pursue my passion, and I went to film school, and I got my bachelor's degree in digital filmmaking and video production. And I can confidently say that um, I know what I'm capable of making as a filmmaker. I am not someone who could make a big effects movie, but I believe that I could be a successful um, like I could make uh, a movie that I can make a good drama movie. I not something that has a lot of effects in it. I can make a good drama with a good character driven story. Not that effects movies aren't character driven stories, but I think you know what I'm getting at. Like a good movie that has um, uh, like a drama, or, a comedy or something like that. I hope you guys know what I'm getting at. And I am someone who um, went back. I went to film school not because I wanted to. I went to film school because I wanted to learn how to make movies, and because there are countless um, um, directors, countless actors who have inspired me to to pursue that career, um, and um, and so I did. I went to film school and I got my degree, and like I said, I love just I love analyzing and talking about films in addition to going to see them and watching them. And it was interesting. Recently, I talked. Well, I don't want to say I had a conversation. It was more of a debate, really. I had a debate with someone who is a little bit older than me. And to be honest, I don't know how old this person is, but he mentioned that he saw The Empire Strikes Back in the theater. So I know he's of a certain age, right? You know, if you're old and you know what I'm saying. If you're old enough to see The Empire Strikes Back in the theater, you're of a certain generation, right? And he said something that I found rather odd. He said that movies belong to the generation in which they were released. Movies belong to certain generations. And that struck me as odd because I not only do I love watching films, talking about films, I love film history and talking about film history. And I think, especially if you're going to go into film school, which is what I and so many other people have done, it's important to study and know film history. And I like to think of myself as an ongoing student of film history. You know, I'm always learning and watching films that were released in my mother's generation or my grandmother's generation, my grandparents' generation, my parents' generation, so and he said this, and I found it odd. Movies belong to generations, and I'm like, do they? Because I've always found it important for, especially if you're a film lover or it's your passion, and especially if you're going to film school, to watch older films, to study film history. And movies don't belong, and I told him this. I said movies don't belong to any generation. They belong to all generations. It's important to watch movies from all generations. It's important for audiences to pass down, like, oh, you should watch this movie. This came out, in the 70s, oh, you should watch this. And I think that's important. And he came back at me and he said, okay, and he knows how old I am. I'm 40, and he said, okay, Nate, when's the last time you watched a movie from the 30s, 40s, or 50s? And I responded, I told him, I said, no BS, last week. I recently have been watching a lot of, well, not recently, like I would say over the past couple of years, I've been watching a lot of James Cagney. I've been watching a lot of Bette Davis, Barbara Stanwyck. I love the silent comedians, Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd. I'm just a lover of film history, and I love watching older films. I get more laughs from Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, and Harold Lloyd than with most comedies these days. Those guys were great. And so I've like I said, um, uh, I've always made it a I've always made it a point for me in terms of my passion for movies. I've always made it a point to watch older films to study film history. There's a wonderful line in the movie Almost Famous, which is a great movie, and it's one of the best screenplays ever written. And there's a wonderful line delivered by Kate Hudson, who plays Penny Lane. And Penny Lane says in the movie, she says, "If you ever get lonely, just go to the record store and visit your friends." And that's how I've always felt about going to the movies and watching movies. And like I said, that there have been countless filmmakers, actors who I've loved watching over the years. And Gene Hackman was one of those people. He was great in everything. I remember reading. Someone said that Gene Hackman never gave a bad performance, and there was a movie that Gene Hackman was in 1995. It was kind of this. It was this Western, like gun duel movie, like gun duel contest movie, and it had Sharon Stone and Leonardo DiCaprio and who else? Keith David and Gene Hackman. It was called The Quick and the Dead. And it's not an Oscar caliber movie by any stretch of the imagination. But my God, Gene Hackman gives an Academy level performance in that movie. That movie it's fun. It's enjoyable. It's kind of schlocky. But Gene Hackman is brilliant in that movie. And I don't think I could use that word. I think to describe every Gene Hackman performance. Now, I'm not going to say I've seen every one of them, because I haven't. But I have seen many of them. And I think the word brilliant could be used to describe every Gene Hackman performance. I grew up at a time when his career was coming to an end. One of my favorite movies is a movie called Enemy of the State. In which he was with Will Smith, and he's brilliant in that. I'm going to overuse that word quite a bit. And then he was in a movie. He was in Crimson Tide with Denzel Washington. I mean, he was. He made a brief appearance in Bonnie and Clyde, and he was great in that. You know, I mean, he was in Young Frankenstein for like 3 minutes, and he stole the scene. He was great. Um, you know, he was the Conversation, which was directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Now, a lot of people, I'm gonna throw this theory out there. Um, there's a he was in this movie called The Conversation, which was directed by Francis Ford Coppola, like I said. And then decades later, he was in Enemy of the State with Will Smith. And a lot of people have posited the theory that he plays the same character in both movies, and that Enemy of the State is kind of a pseudo sequel to The Conversation. I think it might be a bit of a stretch, but um, it's not a bad theory. Um, you know, and obviously the French Connection, which is not it's the movie is great. He's great. Obviously, he won the Oscar. You know, he's great as Little Bill in Unforgiven, which I think is probably the best Western ever made. In fact, there's no probably about it. I think it is the best Western ever made. You know, I'm just gonna run down some of his filmography here. Um, you know, let's see here. Um, you know, the French Connection 2, the sequel to French Connection. French Connection 2, it's not bad. It's not bad. The original is far superior, obviously, but French Connection 2, it's not bad. I I remember reading, because he played Lex Luthor in the Christopher Reeve uh, Superman movies, and I remember reading that he was uh, very hesitant about um, uh, being in those movies because back in those days, comic book movies were not what they are today. In those days, if you appeared in a movie like that, if you were in a movie like that, it was kind of like, well, you're kind of slumming it, aren't you? And I remember reading that he was hesitant about that movie, about being in the Superman movie, because he wanted to be taken seriously as an actor. And for the record, I think he's great as Lex Luthor. Um, and um, you know, Reds. He was in Reds. Um, he did this movie um, that I don't know if a lot of people have seen. Um, he did this movie with Danny Glover called Bat 21. And he plays uh, a colonel during the Vietnam War. And his aircraft is shot down over enemy territory. And a rescue operation ensues. And it's great. It's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, please do yourself a favor and watch it. Gene Hackman is great in that movie. Yeah, Danny Glover's great in that movie too. Um, let's see here. What else? Um, Get Shorty. He was in. Yeah, Get Shorty. It was more of a when he did Get Shorty in the Birdcage. He did uh, Get Shorty in 1995 and then the Birdcage in 1996, and he really showed his comedic chops in those movies. I thought he was great. He was in uh, Absolute Power with which was directed by Clint Eastwood. Um, I mean, a he had a very very good career, and I was um, as a passionate film fan, I was very sad to hear about his death. I he he will be dearly missed, and he will live. The great thing about movies is that they last forever, and his performances, the movies that he was in, they'll last forever. And I just wanted to say a few words. I always have typed out words on social media in regards to an actor or filmmaker's passing. I've never talked about it on camera, um, and it's a little hard. I'm getting a little emotional, and I remember um, I have a friend of mine. Her name is Steiny or Staney. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. She lives in Belgium. I've never spoken with her, but I've conversed with her through social media. So I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. But I remember talking to her about when David Lynch passed away, and at one point I think she felt bad for posting so much stuff about David Lynch because, but David Lynch was her favorite film director. Um, but I guess at one point she felt bad for for posting so many things regarding David Lynch, and I said, look, if someone has had an impact on your life, if someone has made your life more enjoyable, whether you've met them or not, um, it's if someone has had an impact on your life, don't feel bad about talking about them. And I would just like to sit here and say that I I really loved, and thanks to the magic of movies, I will continue to love watching Gene Hackman do what he did best. And I just wanted to say a few words, and he will be missed. He will be dearly missed. Um, so with that out of the way, excuse me. With that out of the way, let's. I wanted to talk about. There's more topics to talk about here. This article is on the Hollywood Reporter, published by Lily Ford, and excuse me. I'm just I'm making sure I'm getting my information correctly. Um, so I'm sorry. There's an article in the Hollywood Reporter published by Lily Ford, and there's this upcoming movie that will be directed by Mike Newell called The Bitter End. And it is a Wallis Simpson biopic. Um, and um, uh, Isabella Rossellini. Isabella Rossellini is going to be in this movie, and she will be joining the legendary Joan Collins. This article says that Isabella Rossellini has joined Joan Collins in The Bitter End, a movie about the untold story of Wallis Simpson. Um, Directed by Mike Newell, who directed Four Weddings and a Funeral. The film charts the last year's. Oh, and it does say the movie will be written by Louise Fennell. The film charts the last years of Wallis Simpson, the American divorcee who became the Duchess of Windsor when King Edward VIII opted for love over duty. This article goes on to say that, Rossellini, an Oscar nominee for her role in the award-winning Conclave, will star as Suzanne Blum, the French lawyer and confidant of Simpson, who will be played by Joan Collins, who at the hands of Blum found herself ensnared in a menacing grip of obsession and coercive control. First of all, I like Mike Newell as a director. He is, I believe, he directed. This is what I was looking up just a minute ago. I believe he directed. Yes, he did. He directed a movie called Donnie Brasco. Mike Newell directed a movie called Donnie Brasco, which it's a gangster movie, starring Al Pacino and Johnny Depp, and it's great. And obviously he directed Four Weddings and a Funeral, and I like Mike Newell as a director. Joan Collins is probably one of the most revered English actresses ever. And, Isabella Rossellini, obviously, what can you say about her? Nothing bad, absolutely not. And these two actresses together, I think, and this movie is also going to I gather from the information here, it's going to be a bit of a history lesson. I think I think that this movie is going to attract a certain audience. Louise Fennell, who became the Duchess of Windsor, and so I think that this sounds interesting to me. I'm this project has my attention. It definitely does. So jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts about this. Um, there was more. Unfortunately, there was more sad news this week. Um, um, Michelle Trachtenberg, who was she was in the Nickelodeon movie Harriet the Spy. She died this week, um, tragically at the age of 39. Um, and she she had. I want to make sure I say this correctly. She was going through some health issues recently, um, and I was shocked to uh, read of that she died this week. Um, she was, again, like I said, Harriet the Spy. She played Buffy's younger sister on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV series Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She was in Gossip Girl. She did a lot of TV. She was on an episode of House, and she was great. She was in this movie. She was in this movie called Eurotrip. Which, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm going to talk about. I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't seen Eurotrip, but let me. It's the scenes that there's one particular scene that she's in Eurotrip where your jaw just drops. And it's and it was shocking and sad to read of her passing this week. Again, so young. I mean, good Lord, she was only a year younger than me, and I remember texting my wife, Katie, and I remember I was like, Michelle Trachtenberg died. And I was just like, oh no, Harriet the Spy, and she was in the live action Inspector Gadget movie. She played Penny in the live action Inspector Gadget movie. She just had a wealth of talent at such a young age, and well, there's a generation of people that there's a certain generation of people that will miss her very much, and I'm kind of one of them, and I'll miss her. We'll miss her. Let's move on here. There is, excuse me, just a second. I'm getting a text from my wife. One moment. So, for those who don't know, there is going to be, eventually, a new Lord of the Rings movie titled The Hunt for Golem. And it's going to be a live action movie. And it's going to be set in the time period in which there's that sequence in the Fellowship of the Ring movie where Gandalf says, I looked everywhere for the creature Gollum, but the enemy found him first. And there's the Hunt for Golem movie will be centered around that event. And unfortunately, this movie has suffered a delay. This article, I should say, is on MovieWeb, published by Archie Fenn. This article says that the live-action Lord of the Rings cinematic universe is still expanding as Warner Brothers has several upcoming movies in the pipeline, including Andy Serkis's The Hunt for Gollum. So, The Hunt for Gollum will be directed, ironically, or rightly so, by Andy Serkis, who brought Gollum to life. This article says, but it seems we'll all have to wait a little bit longer for the next movie to arrive in theaters, as The Hunt for Gollum has just been hit with a major delay. The film, which is being directed by Serkis, who will also reprise the role of Gollum, was originally slated for a December 2026 release window. However, the actor-director recently gave fans some very bad news about the movie's release. This article goes on to say, during an appearance at Fan Expo Vancouver, Andy Serkis was asked about The Hunt for Gollum's production and gave the audience some disappointing news. He said, quote, "Yeah, it is not 2026, unquote," Serkis began. "So how long will the release delay be? A month? 6 months? Nope. Unfortunately, we'll all be waiting a full 12 months to get to watch The Hunt for Gollum." Serkis said it was originally going to be December 2026. It is going to be December 2027. The article goes on, with The Hunt for Gollum originally being given a December 26th release window, fans might have assumed that the movie would be getting ready to go into production by now, but its current progress appears to be much further behind than that. Andy Serkis said, "We are right at the beginning of the writing process," Serkis continued. "We will be prepping later this year. Prep takes a good chunk of time, 6 or 7 months, and then we will be shooting next year. So it backs into that December 27 release date." So, this article does go on to say that the film will take place just before the Fellowship of the Ring, with several unrevealed characters searching for the titular corrupted Stour Hobbit. Some believe the film will follow Gandalf's first encounter with Gollum, which he told Frodo about in The Return of the King, although this has not been confirmed. Okay. This sucks. This really, really sucks. It seems to me, judging from what I've read here, that I guess the writing process fell behind. So that's disappointing to hear, that they couldn't keep their writing on schedule. I understand that the prep takes a good chunk of time. I get that. It just sucks that for whatever reason the writing process fell behind. And as a fan, it sucks when things get delayed. I just want everything now. like I've always said, I just want everything to be released on its original schedule. That's all I want. And it's disappointing to hear. I mean, who knows what could happen to me in 2 years' time? We don't know. But I do like that we're getting more Lord of the Rings movies. I just hope it's good. Andy Serkis, I think, is a good director. He did the second Venom movie, and I believe, what else did he direct? Excuse me just 1 second. Andy Serkis as a director. So yeah, he directed Breathe in 2017, which I heard was great. Um, um, but he also directed uh, um, yeah, Breathe. I heard was pretty good. He also directed this Jungle Book movie, this Mowgli Legend of the Jungle movie, I think, which I haven't heard too much about. Um, but I'm excited that he'll be returning to the world of Lord of the Rings, and I'm obviously excited to see him more as Golem. It just sucks that he uh, it just sucks that this project has been delayed. So jump in the comment section and let me know what you guys think about this. This next piece of news has to do with. Sorry, I'm just all over the place today. So, um, this next article, the next piece of news, has to do with an upcoming sequel to a Jason Statham movie. So, Jason Statham recently appeared, I believe, last year. He was in this movie called The Beekeeper, which I heard was pretty good. And there will be a sequel, aptly titled The Beekeeper 2. But it will be it will not be directed by David Ayer. Who directed the first one. It will have a new director. So this article is on Screen Rant, published by Ryan Northrop. The Beekeeper 2 is now confirmed with Jason Statham returning and a new director. Released in early 2024, David Ayer's The Beekeeper introduced audiences to Statham's Adam Clay, a former, quote, beekeeper operative who sets out on a path for vengeance after someone close to him is scammed. So this article goes on to say that Deadline now reports that Miramax and Statham will reteam for The Beekeeper 2. Miramax is the studio. David Ayer won't direct the film, however. Oh, the dog's barking. People are coming home. The dog is barking. Ayer won't direct the film, however, with Timo Tadjahjanto, who directed The Night Comes for Us, instead is stepping in to helm the sequel. The movie is set to start filming this fall with a script from Kurt Wimmer, who also wrote the first film. So, okay, I haven't seen The Beekeeper. I've heard it's pretty good. I love Jason Statham. You pretty much know what you're getting into when he's in a movie, but I don't care. I mean, what he does is great, and I love it. And I'm glad that the generally positive reviews of the first Beekeeper, and obviously, it was financially successful enough to warrant a sequel. So that's good. Hopefully it's as good, if not better, than the first one. So I need to see The Beekeeper because they're doing a sequel. So this is exciting for anybody who's a Jason Statham fan. So jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts about this. I'm unfamiliar with the director, Timo Tadjahjanto. I'm unfamiliar with him. He directed a movie called The Night Comes for Us, which I've not seen. So hopefully it's good. Hopefully it's good. So we'll see what happens with that. This next bit of news has to do Liam Neeson is doing a dark comedy called Four Kids Walk into a Bank. And there's an actress who has, it's been announced, his co star. So this article is on Deadline, published by Andreas Weissman. So Teresa Palmer, who was in Warm Bodies, has joined the dark comedy Four Kids Walk Into a Bank, which is being directed by Frankie Shaw, who I'm not familiar with. The movie stars it will star Liam Neeson, and this article goes on to say that Neeson plays ex-bank robber Danny, whose teenage granddaughter Paige, who will be played by Talia Ryder. Teenage granddaughter Paige means the world to him. So when she overhears that his former gang is pulling him back in for one more score to pay a debt, she comes up with the only logical solution. She enlists her 3 ride-or-die best friends to rob the bank the day before so he doesn't have to. That's cool. The article goes on to say, adapted by Matt Robinson, the film is based on the graphic novel written by Matthew Rosenberg and Tyler Boss. So Teresa Palmer will play the manager of the bank and love interest to one of the robbers. Interesting. Okay, so that will add some good character dynamic. If she plays the love interest of one of the robbers of the bank, that's going to be interesting. You know, I love Liam Neeson. I'm not familiar with Teresa Palmer. It's nice to see, and look, I love my Liam Neeson action movies, but it's nice. I think it'll be a nice change of pace for him to be in a dark comedy. He did this movie called Cold Pursuit, which is kind of a dark comedy with some action in it, and I thought it was good. So the granddaughter will hire best friends to rob the bank so he doesn't have to, so he doesn't get in trouble, and then it turns out that Teresa Palmer will play the love interest of one of the robbers, which will that'll be an interesting character dynamic there, and then it'll be interesting to like maybe Liam Neeson's character will be mad at the granddaughter for robbing the bank. This sounds good to me, and it's going to be a dark comedy, which I think is a nice change of pace for Liam Neeson. I think this sounds interesting, and it sounds like a good character based film, and I'm always down for that. And so this I'm looking forward to seeing this. So jump in the comment section and let me know what your thoughts about Liam Neeson doing a bank heist dark comedy movie. What are your thoughts on that? A couple more pieces of news here. This one comes from Deadline, published by Justin Kroll. So there's a film director by the name of Sean Durkin, who I think last year he directed this movie called The Iron Claw, which is based on the life of based on the professional wrestling career of I want to make sure I get the name right. Um, of the Iron Claw movie is based on the life of it's based on the career of professional wrestlers by the who go by the names of the Von Erichs, which I heard it was very good. The Iron Claw movie is very good. So Sean Durkin will direct a film adaptation of um, a novel called what's the dog barking at? Will set to there's going to be a film adaptation of a novel by called Deep Cuts that was written by Holly Brickley, and I believe it was her. Uh, it was Holly Brickley's debut novel. So there's going to be a film adaptation of Deep Cuts. And this article is on Deadline, published by Justin Kroll. And the article says that following the success of The Iron Claw, director Sean Durkin and A24 Studios, have found their next project to team on and have assembled some serious star power to lead it. Sources tell Deadline that Saoirse Ronan and Austin Butler are set to star in Deep Cuts, a movie based on the debut novel of Holly Brickley. Durkin is on board to direct and adapt. Saoirse Ronan is also on board to produce. So this article goes on to say that set in the 2000s, Deep Cuts is a love story about two music-obsessed 20-somethings navigating the messy realities of ambition, belonging, and adulthood over the course of an era-defining decade. And so I'm guessing that Austin Butler and Saoirse Ronan are going to play the two lovers. So this sounds great to me. And I obviously this debut novel from Holly Brickley has had enough success and is good enough to warrant a film adaptation. I love Saoirse Ronan. She was what's the I keep forgetting. My brain is not braining today. So the what's the well, let me just say this. I love Austin Butler. He was so good in the Elvis biopic, and as Fade Routha in Dune Part 2. He's great. And Saoirse Ronan is a wonderful actress. She was in. I just actually recently watched Lady Bird. That's the movie I was thinking of. Sorry, my brain is not braining today. Lady Bird is wonderful, and I just watched that recently for the first time. And one of my good friends was just like, "What? You just watched that? What?" I'm like, yeah, I know. Lady Bird. She was wonderful in Little Women, the 2019 adaptation of Little Women. She was great in that. She was in this movie in 2011 called Hannah, and it's awesome, and she's awesome in the movie. She can play a wide range of roles, as can Austin Butler. I think I think uh, I think Austin Butler. I mean, Saoirse Ronan's already been is so accomplished. I think Austin Butler is going to have he's already had a great career, and he will continue to have a great career, I think. And this sounds great, especially, music obsessed 20 somethings, navigating their lives and careers and how messy that can be. That's going to be that's going to be a really powerful story with some really powerful character arcs. I think, and if done right, it could possibly be an Oscar contender. So jump in the comment section and let me know what your thoughts are on this. This last bit of news has to do with Daredevil Born Again, which I talked about earlier. So this article is on Joe Blow, published by Cody Haman. And so Daredevil Born Again Season 2, which I talked about earlier, will debut in 2026. Matthew Lillard is going to be in Daredevil Born Again Season 2. So this article says that published by Cody Haman. The nine episode first season of the Marvel series Daredevil Born Again is scheduled to premiere on Disney Plus on March 4th, 2025, and season 2 of the show was scheduled to begin filming today, meaning February 28th. So this article was published a few days ago. With cameras presumably now rolling, Deadline has broken the news that the new batch of episodes brings Matthew Lillard into the cast. Details on the character Lillard will be playing are, of course, being kept under wraps. Matthew Lillard is a wonderful actor. He was obviously with the Scream movies or movie that he was in, and now, of course, he will be in Scream 7. And he was in Five Nights at Freddy's, the film adaptation of the video game. And I read that he was extremely thrilled with the financial success of that movie. He was in this movie called 13 Ghosts, which, if I'm being honest, the movie... if I'm thinking of the right movie, let me see here. 13 Ghosts. The movie isn't all that good. It's one of those cases where the movie isn't that good, but he was great, and he's always wonderful. He's kind of made a career about being a character actor. And he just brings there's a certain kind of quality that he brings to his roles that you just love everything about what he brings to anything that he does. And him being in Daredevil Born Again, I wonder who he's going to play. That's going to be interesting. Will he interact? Will he be working for the Kingpin? Will he interact with Matt Murdock? It's going to be interesting, and I love him again. It's going to be. I am so excited for Daredevil Born Again Season 2. I'm so happy that Matthew Lillard is going to. I mean, he's been very. It's great that he's been so busy lately. It's always wonderful to see him in anything. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that'll about do it for this week. I do apologize for stumbling a bit this week. My brain, as I said before, my brain was not braining today. I seemed to have been a bit flustered this week, so I apologize for that. But I will be back next week to talk more entertainment news with all of you. So I hope you enjoyed the show this week, and I hope you spread the word and continue to enjoy the show. And with that, I will see you at the movies.